Alright, today we're going to be tying the same streamer I used in my film, Land of the Bulls. Now this is a trip that me and my buddy did last summer where we caught a ton of bull trout fly fishing up in Idaho, and it was a blast. If you guys want to check it out, I'll have it linked below. But today we're going to tie that same streamer I used for pretty much the entire time. And this definitely produced the most fish for us. Now we're going to start with the thread base. I'm just using some GSP thread. And then for the hooks, right now I'm using these B10S size number 6 stinger hooks, but I usually like to use these Moonlit Togata hooks. I only have them in size number 8 right now because I ran out of my size number 6, but this is usually what I use. If you guys want to check these out, I do have a link below. It is a discount link, so if you use that link, it'll save you 15% off at checkout. Alright, now we're going to take some rabbit strips. This is the grizzly color. Then I'm just going to size it up using the little pelt right here. I'm not going to count this tail end because I like this to be a little longer than usual. So I'm going to make it the length of the hook right there. So that's about the length right there. So then I'll pull those fibers back and I'll tie it in right there. So I do one loose wrap to kind of hold it in, another one, and then you can just really tighten down on it. And I usually do one last one to secure it. Then we're going to tie that off. Okay, now we're going to use this chenille. Now this is just some like long fibered chenille with some golden flash and some purple flash. And we're just going to tie that in the back, and then we're pretty much just going to wrap it to the front of the hook. So now we're just going to wrap that. And I like to do some pretty good tight wraps, and I fold the fibers back with my thumb as I go, just to make sure like nothing's getting trapped underneath. But yeah, we're just working that all the way to the front of the hook. But yeah, this fly fishing trip me and my buddy did, we basically just did this long road trip. We camped out of the back of my Honda Pilot, and we just traveled all over searching for bull trout. Now, we are by no means experts when it comes to bull trout, but this is one of the flies that we had the most success on, so I thought I'd do a tying video on it and see if I can help anybody out. Okay, once you get to the front of the hook, you're just going to tie that off, and we're just going to secure that. And then a couple of wraps just to make sure it doesn't come untied. And then we'll just snip off that tag in. And then we're going to take our rabbit strip. But before we do that, we're going to fold down all our fibers. We're going to fold that over the top. Pull back the fibers so we're not trapping any. I like to trap a little bit just so it kind of ramps backwards. About right there. And then I'm just going to do a loose wrap. And then another loose wrap. Pull the rabbit strip tight while I pull the GSP thread tight to secure it, just so it's got some nice tension on it. And then some wraps in front to kind of secure it. Now we're not actually going to cut this off yet, so we're going to leave that on there. And then I'm just going to whip finish this fly. And then we'll snip it off. Okay, next we're going to take some nylon braid. So I'm just using this stuff right here. Let's see, this is 4-pound Ice Magic cold water fishing line. To be honest, I just got this from a fly shop. They just gave it to me. They didn't have enough to spool up a reel with it, so they just gave me whatever's left over on this spool. But it works great for the articulation. You can also use backing if you want. Backing also works. If you have like any like old reels or anything, just cut some of that backing off. But I'm going to snip about 6 inches of that. And then we're going to create a loop with it. So we've got the nylon braid right there. We just made a loop. I'm going to slide that so the tip of the loop is nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to girth hitch it. So we're going to pass this through the eye of the hook, and then we're going to open up that loop right there, and then we're just going to take the ends of this and pass it through that loop, just like that. Grab it on, and then we're just going to pull that tight, and that just creates a nice little girth hitch. Make sure you're not trapping any fibers, and there we go. Okay, so that's it for the back fly. So we're going to take this off, and then we're going to add on the front one. Now there's 2 ways to do this front one. If you have, I don't even know what these are called. I believe these are just like articulation joints. But if you have some of these, you can use that for the fly. But what I do if you don't have those is you can take just a standard hook. So this is like a long shanked hook. And these are just crap hooks. I never really even tie on these. But I'm going to take a pair of clippers and I'm just going to snip it down about right there. We want to leave enough room for the cone bead, but not too long that it affects the articulation. And then if you cut long, you can always cut it shorter. Now when you cut this, I like to kind of put my hand over it a little bit, be safe with it, but you just don't want that hook to go flying all over the room. Man, these things are tough. There we go. So we got the shank, and then there's the hook. So we can throw this away. We don't need this part. All we're going to use is this. So now we're going to use these golden cone beads. Now these have little slots on them for the eyes. We'll add those in later. These are just glue and eyes. But what we're going to do is just pass that through. And then we're going to clip that on right here. Alright, so now we're just going to start our thread base. So we're going to wrap that all the way forward, working our way to the back of the hook. And then we'll just snip off that back end. Now I like to lay down a pretty tight thread base just because we're going to be using the articulation on this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take in our stinger hook right there with our rabbit strip still tied to it. And we'll take our nylon braid we got there. And we're just going to tie this in, and you can size it up however you want. If you're going for some pretty big trout, make it longer. I go for pretty medium size. So let's see, I'm going to say about right, maybe a tad shorter. About right there should be good. Maybe I'll size it up a little smaller. Yeah, that should be good. So I'll tighten that down, and then you just work the nylon braid to the front, doing really nice wraps so that doesn't go anywhere. Last thing you want is to hook up with a really nice bull trout and then have that pull through and then lose the fish. And then I'll wrap it underneath and then do some tight wraps on that as well, just to make it extra secure. And then we'll just snip that off. So now that we got that tied on, work our way back, and we're just going to fold over our rabbit strip and then part it where you're going to tie it in at. And I like to pull the back end pretty tight and then lay the rabbit nice and loose just because the rabbit strip will stretch a bit. And then I just do one loose wrap, another loose wrap, and then I just crank it tight. And make sure everything's on top. Now we're going to take our flash again, this long fibered chenille, and we're just going to tie it in. And then we pretty much do the same thing we did on the front. We're just going to tie it in and then wrap it all the way to the front. Now this fly is pretty easy until we get to the head of the fly. That's where it gets a little bit tricky, but not bad. Okay, and we're going to start wrapping. As we wrap, just like the back end, fold those fibers back. You don't want to trap anything underneath. There we are, so now we're just going to tie it. There's one wrap, two wraps, and then I'll do a third for good measure. Next we'll just snip that off. And then we're going to fold over our rabbit strip. So I'll fold all the fibers kind of down so it's not trapping any underneath. And we'll just tie that in. So I'll do one wrap, two wraps, and then you can kind of pull that tight while you pull this tight. And then I'm going to do a few wraps to just secure it really tight. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the rest of this rabbit strip, and we're going to wrap it just to kind of make a little collar right there. Oops, it broke. Hate when that happens, but I can still save it. So now we'll just secure that down. And then normally you'd clip the leather off, but it broke on me, so I guess I don't have to do that. Alright, so now we're going to add in some soft tackle right here. I'm just going to find the biggest piece I can find on here. Now you don't have to do this. You can make the whole collar out of rabbit strip if you want. But I just like the extra look of having this soft tackle on there. Okay, so we'll just tie that in. And then we're just going to wrap it. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to add another one in there, just to kind of build up a little more bulk on that collar. So we'll just tie that in like the first one. And the goal here is just to build up enough bulk to stop that bead from rolling around in the front. Another thing you can do for that too, if you want to add extra weight and it helps secure this little cone head right here, is just by adding in some lead wire and then pushing it up against the front, and that holds it in and adds a little extra weight. I didn't do that just for this fly because I try to keep this one fairly light, but it definitely does help stabilize it. One more and we should be good. I like to build up the front of these just so it looks a little bit more like a sculpin. Kind of build up that taper. Then we'll just snip that right there. And I'll just add a little whip finish to it. And then the last thing we're going to do is just add on a little UV glue just to kind of secure that thread. But before we do that, so when you tie it without putting lead wire there, you can actually see how this bead is kind of loose. And so an easy way to fix that is you're just going to push it all the way back. And this is how I do it when I want to keep my flies nice and light. But I'll push it back, and then I'll add to the front of the hook. I'm just going to tie my thread in there. This GSP thread's hard to cut. There we go. Then we're just going to kind of hold that bead back as far as we can. And we're just going to build a thread dam in front to kind of hold and lock in that bead. Or not bead, but the cone head. Just like that. And we'll just whip finish that. And then if you're using black thread or a dark colored thread, you don't really have to do this, but since I'm using white, just so it doesn't stand out as much, I'm just going to take a Sharpie to it. We'll just kind of color that up. Then we'll add a little UV glue to the front. Now we'll just cure that. And then to add on the eyes, I just use some of this. Let's see, what is this? This is the E6000 flexible paintable glue, clear transparent. I just picked this up at Hobby Lobby, but super glue would honestly work too. We're just going to take a little bit of that glue and put it in the eye of the hook. And we'll take our holographic eyes right there. We'll just add those in. Next, to seal it up, I'm just going to take a little bit of UV glue. We're just going to kind of coat the whole top side and cure it. And then we'll just do the same to the other side. Alright, and there it is. If you guys want to check this fly out in action, check this video out right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.